Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Today we're back at it with another monitor review, this time looking at something in that wonderful bang for buck category, the Pixio PX7 Prime. This is a 27-inch 1440p 165Hz IPS gaming monitor priced at just $430 which for the specs makes it one of the cheapest options on the market. In fact, it undercuts the popular Gigabyte Aorus AD27QD by over $100, and both monitors use essentially the same panel, while also offering a good discount over the LG 27GL850 I recently reviewed. Being an IPS monitor, it's not going to offer the same screaming low price as some of the VA options out there, but IPS tends to be a more premium technology, so we'll see how it stacks up. Now, I'm a fan of the new design Pixio has been using for some of their latest releases. The PX7 uses a stand and general aesthetic that was first seen in the PX5 Hayabusa. Simple black plastic on all sides in the stand, nothing overly outrageous on the rear, no RGB lighting or anything like that, but a nice, clean design that looks great and should suit most setups. The big inclusion here over some of Pixio's earlier monitors is the height adjustable stand, which also brings swivel and pivot support plus tilt, which I guess is fairly standard. While the stand is relatively lightweight and doesn't quite have the same premium metal construction as some other similar monitors, I'll happily take a plastic adjustable stand over the previous non-adjustable metal unit that Pixio used to provide. Standard range of inputs here with 2 display ports and a single HDMI. It's pretty neat that Pixio has labeled the maximum refresh rates that each port supports, 144Hz for HDMI and 165Hz for DisplayPort. Wish more manufacturers would do that. The on-screen display is Pixio's usual simple affair, no features really worth mentioning, although it is controlled through a directional toggle, which is great news. As it stands right now, the Gigabyte AD27QD definitely offers a far more comprehensive feature set with active noise cancellation and various gamer-focused functions. So the PX7 is designed as more of a screen-only type product, hence the lower price. But if you're not the sort of person that uses cheat crosshairs or black boosting options, then the PX7's lack of features is not going to be a big deal. In 2019, I still think the combination of a 2560 by 1440 resolution, 144Hz refresh rate or above, and adaptive sync is the best for gaming. The resolution is good enough to provide a crisp experience whether in games or for desktop use, and the refresh rate provides smooth gameplay while still being achievable on mid to high-end hardware. Like most adaptive sync monitors, I had no trouble using the PX7 on AMD and Nvidia GPUs, and it supports low frame rate compensation. In terms of response times, let's start here with the panel's native performance without overdrive. An 11 millisecond gray-to-gray average is pretty standard for an IPS panel. These generally aren't the quickest, but we can improve things with overdrive. At 165Hz, the low mode is a small improvement, but it's the middle mode where things really kick into gear. Here we are getting a 6.48 millisecond gray-to-gray average, which is decent for a non-TN 1440p monitor, but it isn't exactly setting the world on fire. Only 2/3 of all transitions fall within a reasonable tolerance of the 6.06 millisecond refresh window for a 165Hz display. Ideally, I'd want to see that number up above 80%. And with that, 6.48 millisecond average, this monitor delivers more like a 120 or 144Hz experience in terms of ghosting. We're also getting a mid-tier error rate here with a 5% average and 7.3% of transitions above a 15% overshoot, so inverse ghosting is pretty minimal in this mode, but it does show up for a few transitions where you can see overshoot above 30%. I wouldn't recommend using the high overdrive mode. We do see an improvement to a 3.58 millisecond gray-to-gray average, which exceeds the panel's rated 4 millisecond transition time, but this comes at the cost of significant overshoot. Here's how the PX7 stacks up to other monitors we've tested. It's not the quickest monitor going around, but it's also not the slowest. In fact, it sits in a small cluster of similar monitor types along with the PX275H and LG's 32-inch flat VA offerings. The PX7 is also quicker than some monitors from our previous test suite, like the AD27QD, by about 2 milliseconds when using optimal settings. However, it can't match the LG 27GL850, the current IPS speed champion with its 4.08 millisecond average. TN monitors like the Viotech GFT27DB also provide a faster response at this resolution. The PX7 isn't overly amazing in terms of dark level average either, sitting at the lower end of the IPS pack, but generally quicker than VAs that suffer from a bit of dark level smearing. The LG 32GK650F, for example, while it isn't the worst for dark level smearing, is notably slower than the PX7 here despite having a similar overall average. And this is one reason to choose IPS over VA for gaming. Response time compliance, again, not the best result for the PX7 Prime, but that's largely due to its aggressive 165Hz refresh rate target. Were this a 144Hz monitor instead, we'd be seeing a compliance up around 80%. I think Pixio are purely offering 165Hz here so they can stand out of the pack with a top-end specification, because really there isn't much of a performance difference between the PX7 and other 144Hz equivalents. For error rates, as I mentioned, we're looking at mid-tier performance and mid-level inverse ghosting. Not a big deal here, and it is nice to see Pixio tuning their overdrive to get the most out of this panel. Gigabyte, for example, with the AD27QD, weren't as aggressive with overdrive, and I was a bit disappointed with the results. Pixio certainly are at the limits of this Innolux panel. If you want to use the monitor at 60Hz for whatever reason, say console gaming, response times are still strong here at a 6.90 millisecond average and decent input lag as well. For input lag at 165Hz, the PX7 does a fantastic job of offering next to no processing delay and only a small contribution from the refresh rate. Where it falls down the pack a bit is with the delay introduced by the response times, but given it still sneaks in below 10 milliseconds overall, this is a fantastic result for an IPS gaming monitor. Power consumption is also decent, a few watts less than the LG 27GL850, although that is a negligible difference in most cases. Time to talk color performance, which is naturally a big consideration when buying an IPS monitor, given they are known to be strong performers in this area. Unfortunately, Pixio's factory calibration for the PX7 Prime isn't great. Out of the box, my unit had a strong blue tint, which you can see here clearly in the CCT curve, and average over 7512K. The monitor does a decent job of following the sRGB gamma curve, but with its cold tone overall, it's no surprise to see a delta E average above 4.5. The other issue here is a standard one. The PX7 is a wide gamut monitor touting 95% DCI-P3 coverage, but the gamut is left unclamped by default, which means for standard sRGB desktop usage, we get oversaturation. When combined with the incorrect color temperature, we see a 3.84 delta E average in our saturation test and a delta E average above 4.0 in color checker. Unfortunately, this is a little worse than average for a gaming monitor. With no sRGB gamut toggle in the monitor's on-screen settings, fixing the oversaturation issue isn't straightforward. However, with a few simple user color tweaks and a small upgrade to contrast, as you can see here from our recommended settings, we can improve performance significantly. With these tweaks, we get much better grayscale performance, including a delta E average below 1.0. We still get oversaturation, but delta E performance in our color tests is also very good in general now, hovering near that 2.0 mark. Given most people should be able to tweak a few settings and get similar results, I think this is good news for buyers. The rest of the issues, such as the unclamped gamut, can be corrected through a software ICC profile, as usual delivering delta E averages below 1.0, which you'd expect from any modern monitor. If you are interested in getting the profile we created for this display, that's available through our Patreon page, although as always we should note that your results using it may vary given natural panel variances. sRGB is only one aspect to this display's performance, and while it does cover most common use cases, the PX7 Prime is also a wide gamut monitor. Default D65P3 performance isn't great because once again we fall foul of the same color temperature issues as when testing against sRGB, which helps push saturation and color checker delta E's above a 3.0 average. However, after a few simple tweaks to correct that white point, we're actually left with sub 1.0 delta E's when testing against P3, so there's really no need to take things further with an ICC profile. Had Pixio paid more attention to factory calibration, this display could have shipped in a really strong configuration, but unfortunately they've left getting good performance up to users. It's also worth noting that yes, I was able to achieve 95% DCI-P3 coverage, which is excellent for this sort of monitor. Uniformity is good here, the central zone is reasonably consistent, there is a bit of a fall off on the left side, but this isn't too noticeable. Importantly, performance here is better than both the LG 27GL850 and the Gigabyte AD27QD, although this could be partially down to panel variance. Brightness is strong at approximately 400 nits, that's well above what most people will need. The contrast ratio is also better than average for a non-VA display, coming in at a little over 1000:1 when calibrated. This is much better than the LG 27GL850, but around the same mark as the AD27QD, as you'd expect given it uses the same panel. Interestingly, in its factory state, the contrast ratio was below 1000:1, so calibrating actually improves performance, which is rare among monitors. Viewing angles are excellent, equivalent to other IPS monitors, and I didn't notice much if any IPS glow, which is a positive. I'll also make brief mention of HDR capabilities here, given this is advertised a few times on Pixio's website. Once again, this is not an HDR capable monitor. It doesn't have any display HDR certification, nor is it capable of hitting the brightness or contrast requirements for a true HDR experience, so yeah, don't go buying this monitor expecting a brilliant HDR monitor. So the PX7 Prime is another typical showing from Pixio overall. It's a mid-range IPS monitor with an attractive and value-focused price, and I think once again Pixio are offering great bang for buck if you want to go down the high refresh 1440p IPS monitor route. For that reason, I suspect it will be a pretty popular option, especially if you're eyeing off something similar like the Gigabyte AD27QD. This monitor does a lot of things well: strong viewing angles and contrast ratio for an IPS, decent design with an adjustable stand, excellent color performance when calibrated, low input latency and a high refresh rate for gamers, and response time performance is adequate without being amazing, although it does outperform the Gigabyte AD27QD. The downsides being, I just don't think the performance justifies a 165Hz refresh rate. To me, this is more a 144 or 120Hz panel, which is fine given many other monitors in this category also have similar performance. Factory calibration is poor. My unit shipped with a strong blue tint, although that is easily fixable. And there's not a lot of additional features here, certainly nowhere near what you get with the AD27QD, although I suspect many buyers will be fine with the more bare bones experience given the price difference. In general, if you're tossing out between this and something like the AD27QD, I see not much reason to spend over $100 more on the Gigabyte option. The PX7 has essentially the same panel, very similar performance, and its price tag of $430 I feel is very appropriate given its mid-range capabilities. If you do want to spend $500 or more, I'd step up to the high-end LG 27GL850, which is the overall best-in-class option at the moment. While I do think this is a great bang for buck IPS option, perhaps the best bang for buck IPS monitor on the market overall, you'd have to be really set on IPS technology and the benefits it brings. The reason for that is you can get VA monitors with these specs for around the $350 mark. Yeah, they don't perform as well in terms of response times and viewing angles, plus they are often curved, but I still think they are superb value options. The PX7 is a step up in quality, but also a step up in price, so it's just something to be aware of. My continuing disappointment with Pixio though is their availability. This is a company that does great things with monitors, but only sells them in the United States and a few other countries. They really need to go for global availability. Places like Europe are screaming out for products like this, given many other companies focusing on the budget market like AOC, for example, are sticking to more VA options. That's it for this one. Like this video if you enjoy our monitor coverage, and subscribe for more because we're always getting new displays into test. Consider supporting the channel as well through places like Patreon or our merch store. It all helps to continually improve our testing and buy the products you want us to review. Not much more to say, so I'll catch you in the next one.